Hello and welcome back to the Keep Right On podcast. I'm Alex Dicken and today I'm joined by my usual co-host Brian Dick, and we are going to throw it forward to Hull City after the international break and take a look at a lot of questions that have been sent in by you today and go through them. But first we are going to talk about Hull, and first we are going to talk about the international break. Brian, how have you been bearing up?
Well, I've been struggling and while you've been off. So how many days did you have off this time?
I had 5.
5 days off. Okay, so that's 5 days of Blues content for me to find. It's not fun, is it? I can't wait until next season when Blues are in the Premier League and there will only be is it 2 or 3 international breaks next season? They're going to condense. They're going to condense the September and October ones, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then you won't be allowed to have the extended 3-week break that the one international break next season will be.
Yeah, I was going to say I would definitely try and take the 3 weeks off for September and October, because that is going to be hell. That is giving like end of May levels of hell. That is.
I'm sure everyone that's listening is really concerned about our ability to scrape together content, aren't they? I suppose the one worry that's come out of the international break is Dimmy coming home for early from Jamaica for treatment. We'll find out more about that in the next couple of days, won't we? But for the moment, he's the only new player that started all 9 championship games, and he's the only one you'd say, yes, absolutely, definitely, 100% deserves his place every game and has definitely improved the side. So, yeah, that's always the knock with international football.
Yeah, and thankfully it is only one player, we think, coming back injured. So throw it forward to Hull, Brian. 2 teams that mirror each other in the championship so far. 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats in their opening 9. Hull have a slightly better goal difference, -2. They've scored more goals, but they've conceded a lot more as well. How do we think Blues... Actually, first we'll talk about the Hull threats, because there is quite an obvious threat in this team, isn't there? There's a real dynamic duo there that have contributed a large chunk of their goals so far.
There totally is. I've written about it for the Hull Daily Mail. I think you've written about it for Birmingham Live. It is the link up between Ryan Giles, who is the left back, and Ollie McBurney up front, a striker that Blues were connected with. Between them, well, Ryan Giles has got 5 assists and Ollie McBurney has scored all of them. They've all been for Ollie McBurney's goals. So he's got 7 so far this season, 5 assisted by Ryan Giles, and they are by some distance. I think the next combination is only 2, by some distance, the most sort of effective partnership or duo in the championship. So, yeah, whoever's playing right back for Blues and whoever's marking Ollie McBurney is going to have to be bang on their money this weekend, because that is the real danger area. As you said, Hull do concede quite a few goals. I think they're still looking to perfect their combinations at the back. They had 12 players come in over the summer transfer window. Obviously, they had an embargo as well, which meant that they could only sign free transfers and loan players. So yeah, they've had to sort of throw their net quite far and wide. They've had Sergei Yakurovich has come in as the manager. He's coached, I think, in 5 different countries since 2020. He was last in Turkey. So yeah, it's kind of been built on the hoof, but there are promising signs for them as well. They are very much a dangerous team, and Yakurovich is very, very much an attack-minded manager.
Yeah, I think I had Hull down there when we were doing our...
Yeah, I think most people did. Yeah, absolutely.
At the start of the season. But, if you look at some of the players they've recruited, McBurney is obviously the one that leaps off the pages, and he's a proven centre-forward at this level, has done okay in the Premier League at times in his career. And Ryan Giles, although he hasn't done it the last few years, he has the potential to be a real weapon in the Championship. One of the best players in the Championship, definitely one of the best left-backs on his day, as we've seen this season with the assists that he's been getting. And they still have a few of those players that were there under Rossini when they finished 7th as well. So they're a dangerous team on their day. More interestingly for our listeners is, how do we think Blues should line up to beat Hull? How do we think they should go about it this weekend? We're going to go for our 11s rather than a predicted 11, because that kind of will open up a bigger can of worms and lead us to second guess Chris Davies when we don't really know accurate injury news as of yet. So are we both going James Beadle in goal firstly?
I think so. I think when we get onto the Q&A section, somebody has asked about Beadle in goal, but yeah, we'll quickly brush over that and we'll address that in more depth later on. Thought he did okay at Wrexham, so yeah, you go Beadle in goal and you go with your back four, don't you? And then your 2-3-1. So yeah, I suppose much depends with the right back. Are you going with Beadle as well, presumably?
Yeah. So this going to the defence is where it probably gets a bit more interesting. With if Asai Samuel is fit, obviously a very different type of right back, or would play the position very differently to what Tomoki Iwata did against Wrexham. I quite like Iwata at right back, and for a game like Hull at home, where I think Blues will have the lion's share of possession again. Hull aren't one of the possession-based teams in the Championship. Why can't Iwata play at right back again and then invert into midfield when Blues have the ball? I think that could work.
Yeah, I'd be more inclined to play Asai Samuel, to be honest with you, for a bit of pace in the side.
Against Giles.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, arguably, Iwata would potentially do a better defensive job against Giles because he'd be more physical with him, wouldn't he? Asai Samuel hasn't been massively physical. And defensively, you know, not going to just throw the Coventry own goal at him, but because that can happen to any player. But there have been times when you've thought, I wish you'd get closer, or I wish you'd block that cross, or you know, not be so far up the pitch. So that said, I'm all for round pegs in round holes, and Iwata feels like a square peg in a round hole when he plays right back. So yeah, I would go Asai Samuel. And then obviously Cochrane picks himself on the left, doesn't he? And then the centre-back combination, I wasn't massively impressed with Jack Robinson against Wrexham, to be honest with you. I do think that it is time to get Phil Neumann into the side again, next to Clara.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you, to be honest, Brian. I think Jack Robinson and before him, Aaron Cashin got into the 11 by default of having a left foot, didn't they? Because Chris Davies has been looking for that combination to get Clara back over to the right. You know, looking at Phil Neumann and his record at Hanover, he played on the left quite a lot. He played on the left of a back three at various points last season as well. So he's clearly used to that position. And I don't see why he can't play there if Clara needs to stay on that right side, which I think we probably all agree that he does now. Clara has been better on that right side. He looks more natural, especially when he's in possession. I think we'd all rather him be there. So why not give Neumann a go on the left side of it? Whether Chris Davies will leave Jack Robinson out, I'm not so sure, because I know he values experience, his leadership. He's been there and done it before in the Championship multiple times. And
when he played against Swansea, he really gushed about having the left foot on the left side of the defence again, didn't he?
Yeah, and he massively values the left foot. So I think it'll be Jack Robinson again, because for all the reasons we just outlined. But I wouldn't be against giving Phil Neumann a go either.
No, same. Midfield 2. Go on, you go first.
You know what? I was apart from that one blind pass in the first half against Wrexham, I was really impressed with Mark Leonard. And what does it say if you bring him in for that game, he does well, and then you leave him out for the next game, especially when he's been there over the next 2 weeks at the training ground while others have been away on international duty. So I would be inclined to stick with Mark Leonard, and then it's a question of, do you play Peck, who's been away for the last week and played 90 minutes against Brazil, but didn't play in South Korea's second game against Paraguay? Actually, he came off in the first game as well.
Yeah, he did. He played 75 minutes against Brazil. Yeah.
So he's not been absolutely flogged on international duty. So I would probably go with him. I think it's probably a battle between Peck and Tommy Doyle for that second midfield position. And I don't think Doyle has done enough yet to oust Peck. Seriously,
I think it's the perfect opportunity to bring Doyle into the side, particularly you know, if Peck's got a few air miles under his belt. I wasn't over bowled by Mark Leonard against Wrexham. Not in the first half. Second half, I thought he was much more assertive.
I think he gives you a little bit more physicality than the other two, doesn't he? If you get to play those two in midfield,
not as much as Iwata though. I'm going to say Samuel at right back and Iwata and Doyle in the middle.
Yeah. That's fair. If I'm going Iwata at right back, which I am for the purpose of this now, I would go with Leonard and Peck in midfield, like they did against Wrexham. But like you say, Brian, I do think it's probably as good opportunity as Davies is going to get to have an easy throw at bringing Dahl into the team after an international break or an international window for Peck. I think if he's gonna do that decision, he's probably going to do it now rather than next week. But then again, there are 3 games this week, aren't there? So there'll be rotation. There'll be a chance for Dahl, I presume, in one of them.
Yeah, it would make more sense to me to play Doyle at the weekend
and then bring Peck back in.
Yeah, Peck back in midweek, to be honest. But yeah, that's the way I'd go. I still think we are only scratching the surface of what Tommy Doyle can do. And I know someone's asked about why Davies isn't playing him more, so we'll come on to that a bit later as well. But yeah, Doyle and Iwata for me. We could spend the next hour on the attacking 3 and the one person up front. Should we go up front? Who would you play up front? And then we can debate the 3 behind them.
I would want Stansfield up front, but I don't think we can have that luxury at the moment, can we? So I'd probably go for Kyogo for this one.
Such a debate, isn't it? Because you're there thinking, why play Kyogo if he's going to get himself a chance with great movement or brilliant work off the ball by forcing a turnover and then miss it? What is the point of him being there? I would go Kyogo as well. You want Stansfield? Why don't you just go for Stansfield?
Because I think Blues need him in the number 10 position at the moment. I think I'd go with those 2 in those positions. Stansfield as the 10 at the moment, and Kyogo as the striker. I think Kyogo against Hull. They're not a massive team themselves. Looking at them,
no,
and their centre backs aren't huge. I think John Egan. They're not the most mobile either, though I would say. So I think there'll be spaces there for Kyogo to exploit. And at a home game as well, I'd rather do it at home than away. So I think Kyogo might be a good option for this one.
Does Marvin Duksh being fit change any of those combinations for you? I think it might just for me.
Not from the start, I don't think, for this, given that he's been out for 3 weeks again. So I'd go for Kyogo and Stansfield in those positions for this one.
I think if he is fit, I would go Duksh up front and Stansfield behind him, or next to him out of possession.
Yeah, we're basing that on the strength of the Swansea game.
I mean, that's all we've got to base it on, isn't it, really, with Duksh? So, yes, we are, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Wingers, then? If Gray's fit, obviously he plays left. And then I'm guessing we do probably have to still stick with Patrick Roberts on the right, given that he played reasonably well against Wrexham last time out, scored his first goal. So I think that is the best wide combination Blues have got, isn't it? So I think we should stick with that and see how that goes. Yeah, that's how we're going.
Number 10, I'm thinking I suppose it is Stansfield and Duksh or Stansfield and Kyogo in terms of the striker number 10 situation. Yeah, Keshi Anderson is fit again, isn't he? I'm quite encouraged by that. And if Dimmy isn't fit to resume, then I have no issues with Keshi playing, because actually when he came on, I thought he was nice and direct again the other day.
Yeah, I know, I agree. The only thing with that is when Gray is fit, I prefer Gray on the left now. I don't really want to see Gray that much on the right. I prefer him on the left, and that's where Anderson has been at his best in the past of Blues, although he can play on the right as well. But for me, the 2 wingers, when fit, Robertson and Gray. Yeah,
indeed. Okay, so yes, should we move on to the takes and questions then?
Yes, go for it, Brian.
So actually, Stephen's mentioned, thanks for getting in contact, Stephen. Stephen said, Brian seemed very despondent in the last podcast as he picked himself up ready for our promotion push. Stephen, if you thought that was despondent, you should have seen me after Coventry. I'm not despondent. I think Blue's biggest issue at the moment is the difference between expectation and outcome. And actually, I think all the talking that those upstairs have been doing about promotion and getting to the Premier League, I think that is potentially Chris Davies' biggest enemy at the moment, while he tries to make sense of the pieces that the recruitment team have given him, certainly in attack and in defence as well, to be fair. So I'm not despondent, and I actually don't think Blues are very far away from being a playoff contender at the moment. When I watch them at the moment, they don't feel like a playoff team. They don't feel well grooved, and everyone knows what they're doing. Sorry, no, I don't mean that, because if we know anything about a Chris Davies side, they will all know what they're supposed to be doing. It doesn't feel quite as fluid and as sort of well drilled. Again, that might be the wrong expression. Help me out here, Alex. It doesn't seem to be functioning the way it did last season yet.
No, I think that's because there are moving parts and new players, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah, I think so. But I think if they can find the right defensive partnership, which I think they can, and if they can sort of get the attacking players back fit, Williamson and Dutch, and perm the right partnership, or maybe two partnerships, starters and finishers, then I do think that they can be well in the playoff mix, because there's not a huge amount that's impressing me at the moment. So yeah, not despondent at all, just have some questions at the back of my mind.
It's the fact they're not settled, isn't it, Brian? You look at last season, and I mean, we wouldn't have even really been debating the 11 they were going to play, again for a game from maybe January, February onwards. It was kind of set in stone, really. When certain players were fit, that was how the 11 would look. Whereas you've just listed three partnerships at defence, in midfield, and obviously in attack as well, that just really haven't quite been ironed out yet. So once that changes, you'd hope that results will improve, and you feel like Blues have created a bedding in process for themselves, haven't they, by the sheer volume of players they brought in during the summer.
So, I mean, do you feel that they're very far from a playoff push?
I think there are too many variables for me at the moment with the players, particularly the two strikers they've signed from abroad. I don't know what Marvin Duksh and Kyogo are going to look like over a season in the Championship. So far, we've seen Kyogo's got excellent movement, gets himself into loads of great positions, but ultimately he's missed the most big chances in the Championship. So, that's frustrating, and that is holding Blues back a little bit. And Marvin Duksh, for all his incredible injury record while he was at Werder Bremen, he's not been able to get himself fit since he came here. And when he did get fit, he obviously got injured. So, two frustrations there. And I think the success of Blues season long term will depend on one of those players, or both of them, hopefully, being able to hit the goal trail and take some of the load off Jay Stansfield, because still he is the person that Blues rely on to score goals. So that there needs to be some sharing around there for me.
Yeah. And I do think there are enough options within the squad for the solutions to be found. I had a veiled swipe at the recruitment that was done over the summer there. It's not perfect. It doesn't look perfect yet, but I think, as Davies integrates them and beds them in, then hopefully it looks like Blues have signed more answers than questions going forward. They have
options. I've said this a few times. I look at Coventry's starting 11 is absolutely superb, one of the best in the Championship for me, and that is why they're up there. But if they got 4 or 5 injuries, I think they'd really struggle. Whereas Blues, as we've seen in the early weeks of the season, can carry injuries and still do okay. So I think in time, Blues squad depth and quality of that squad should come to the fore.
Yes, indeed. Let's move on. Next one was, does Neumann only get back in this team if Clara is out? From Matt.
I hope not.
Shouldn't do, should he?
No, I hope not. I mean, that again comes down to, is the left footer absolutely essential? I think it's important to the way that Blues want to play and the way they're set up, but I don't think it's absolutely essential, because we saw that at the start of the season when Clara was playing in that position as the left side centre-back. Results weren't awful. When Chris Davies made the change, was it 2 wins, a draw and 2 defeats, I think?
Yeah.
So it's not terrible, is it? So, if Blues were keeping clean sheets constantly, then you'd say that, fine, the partnership between Robinson and Clara is the best bet. But Blues, I think, have only kept 2 clean sheets in the Championship this season. And this is a team that a lot of their success last season was based around keeping clean sheets, because, as we know, they don't score an awful lot of goals or create an awful lot of chances. So that has been very, very detrimental so far this season. So they do need to find a settled partnership. I have a hunch that Chris Davies will try and make that Clara and Jack Robinson. I don't see why it shouldn't be Phil Neumann, and I would, if defensive performances don't improve pretty quickly, I'd be quite happy to see him try on the left side instead of Jack Robinson and instead of Clara.
Yeah, indeed. Which is just neither of us have mentioned there in Cashin, have we? It feels a long way back for Cashin now. Matt's question about Neumann only getting back in the team if Clara is out. You wonder what set of circumstances there'd have to be for Cashin to get back in. Matt goes on to say, what do you think would be a good points return before the next international break? And what league position do we need to be in to keep some fans content short term? So just run through the next few fixtures for us, Alex.
Yeah, Hull at home, Preston away, Bristol City away, Portsmouth home, Millwall home, Middlesbrough away. On paper, there's some tricky games in there. Obviously, Preston, I think, are fourth at this time. Bristol City started well, have tailed off a little bit. They had some big wins early on this season. Portsmouth have been fairly consistent, not dissimilar to Blues, really, or consistently inconsistent. Millwall have just creeped onto the edge of the playoffs with a few decent results, but did get thumped 4-0 at home to Coventry, but most teams are getting battered by then. And obviously Middlesbrough have been quite a model of consistency so far, sitting second in the table, only one defeat. So that obviously looks like the hardest game in this next batch of fixtures away at Middlesbrough. You want to get 9 or 10 points when you've run from 6 games. Cause
I've got 9 in my mind, absolutely. Blues always win at Bristol City. Yeah. The record down there is superb. Middlesbrough, again, obviously it's going to be hard, but they're not absolutely destroying teams. They've ground out results, which might suggest that the game with Blues would be a tight one. But there's none there really. Obviously Middlesbrough away, they're second in the league, but again, like I said, they're not sweeping teams aside, so that's not massively intimidating. And there's no reason why, if Blues are well organised and they've happened upon some solutions to important combinations, why they can't go there and get a result. Preston for me is a difficult one. They've surprised me, I have to say, because I think their budget is certainly not upper end of the Championship, and I was sort of had them in the back of my mind, given what happened last season, given the sort of fact Paul Heckingbottom towards the end of last season was expressing concerns about the budget. I thought they might be in for a struggle this season, but no, a good manager has created a good team there, hasn't he? So listen, it just smacks to me, that whole run of 6 games just smacks to me of typical Championship fixtures. Hull at home, Preston away, Bristol City away, Millwall at home. It's very Championship, if you know what I mean by that. So they're all feel like 50-50 calls. So on that basis, if we're going 18 points available, we'll take 50% of them and take 9. And I think that keeps out, I think that keeps the wolf from the door.
Yeah, you know what? There have been the three home games there: Hull, Portsmouth, and remind me what the other one was, Millwall. I think they're all winnable home games. I think all of them are winnable games. Those 3 home games with Blues record, I would hopefully be banking on taking at least 2 wins. And then you're looking at the away games. Preston, difficult place to go under Paul Heckingbottom. They've only lost once this season. That was away. They're unbeaten so far at home. 4 wins, 4 draws. So that's a very difficult one. Middlesbrough, as we've said, difficult one. But you'd like to think that Blues will get at least 2 points on the road. So yeah, why can't they get 10 or 11 this month? I'm going to go 10. I feel like that's a safe round number.
Okay. I'm going to be despondent and go 9, which would put them on. Do some quick maths for me, Alex. How many would that put them on?
What they're now 12, 21.
Yeah, 21 at the. Let's have think 15 games of the season. It's not setting the world alight, but you are within a good run, I would think, by that stage of being in the playoff picture, wouldn't you? I don't think 21 points gets you in the playoff picture, but you're within a good run of being in the playoff picture, I would say.
Yeah,
and for me, that's all right. Sorry, go on.
No, you're in touch, and like you say, most teams that finish in the playoffs at the end of the season, if we look at the teams that creep in and finish 5th or 6th or whatever, they have a run, don't they, where they'll go 10, 12 games unbeaten and get 6, 7 wins. So if we're assuming that run is yet to come, then I think 10 points or 9 points to say, Brian, from this next 6 games would be a decent return for Blues.
I think the difficult phrase in Matt's question is keep some fans content. That's about performances as well as results, isn't it? The way that the team is perceived and the way that Chris Davies's management is perceived. Yes, grinding out a 1-0 wins with an EGA of or an XG of 1.1 will get the job done, but it may not please everybody. So I think it's about energy, and it's about intensity, and it's about tempo. I think, which if Blues can create that in this 6 games, then that will also be another tick in the column for Chris Davies to keeping people happy.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Next question from George. Quite a simple one, but an important one at that. What do you both think of the goalkeeping situation? Brian, obviously, Ryan Allsop had been undisputed number 1 for league games for around a year before Chris Davies made the call to take him out for that Wrexham game, bringing James Beadle in. Davies said afterwards that he always obviously intended to give James Beadle, a highly rated lone goalkeeper, a chance this season. Probably come a little bit earlier than most of us expected, although, Allsop's performances had, caught our eye at least in the 2 or 3 games before Chris Davies took him out the firing line. I think it goes without saying now that given the way Beadle acquitted himself against Wrexham, he's probably going to get a run between the sticks now.
You absolutely don't want uncertainty in terms of who is the goalkeeper, because again, it's about building relationships. And if you don't know who your 2 centre-backs are and you're not sure who the goalkeeper is, it all starts to feel very wobbly, doesn't it? That the house seems to be built on, on sand rather than on rock. Now Beadle's there, you absolutely want him to stake a claim and go forward as the number 1. I'm slightly surprised it came as early as it did. I just felt that Ryan Allsop still had more brownie points in the bank. Yes, there was an error. Was it Coventry? An error.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I thought he played Blues into trouble at Coventry.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he did.
And then which game was it after Coventry?
It was an error against Sheffield Wednesday.
Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. So let's say there's been a couple of instances in those 2 games. Still feels like quite a short leash, but Chris Davies can't die wondering. He has to make a call, doesn't he? And I was quite surprised. Well, I was very surprised that Wrexham away was the time he chose for that call. But as we said earlier, Beadle, did pretty well in that game.
I think that's because we were on the Bailey Peacock-Farrell rule of you've got to make 4 or 5 mistakes before you lose your place. But Allsop, for me, didn't do an awful lot wrong. But as you say, Brian, now Chris Davies has made the call. He can't take Beadle out. Beadle's got to get his chance now. Yeah,
I don't know if it doesn't get us anywhere comparing how much leash Peacock-Farrell and Allsop have got, does it? And who's got the most points in the bank? But no, you're absolutely right. Let's sort of kill that controversy, that goalkeeping controversy, before it even becomes one. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Go on.
Here's a good one. I've not really given this much thought, which is poor from me. From Phil, from the Gold Coast of Australia. So I really, really should have given it more thought. I'm going to quickly give it thought by throwing it to Brian. If you could pick any player from Birmingham's past to slot into the current team to get them firing, who would you choose and why?
Well, people who listen to this will know I'm a complete Mikael Forsell stan.
I know, but who's going to create for him, Brian? Who's going to create?
I'm going to go Brian Hughes, man who played. You what?
You're having 2.
No, well, you just said I couldn't have Forsell, so I'll go Hughes. Played over 300 games for Blues back in the 2000s, sort of late 90s and early 2000s. Part of the side which came up into the Premiership as it was then, with the playoff win over Norwich in Cardiff. A very, very, very technically gifted player, a versatile player. I know he didn't like playing wide particularly, but I'd see him fitting into today's number 10 role that Davies has. I'd see him fitting into that like a hand into a glove. So if I can't have Forsell, then I'd go Brian Hughes. I'd like to say Seb Larson as well. I could reel off 1,000 here. It'd be great to see Seb Larson playing on the right wing and sticking balls into the box. However, I'd be concerned about anyone finishing off the crosses at the moment. At the back,
Ben Davies, say Ben Davies.
and just for the interview, an in-form Roger Johnson wouldn't go amiss, to be honest with you. So, yeah, is that enough time for you to offer something?
Well, yeah, I've got a few. I could go Scott Dann as well. I think he's probably better on the left side than Roger Johnson was. So Scott Dann would be a good one. Liam Ridgewell could do that role as well. I'm going to be a bit of a hypocrite here, having to go at you for selecting strikers and say that a man we had on this podcast recently, Cameron Jerome, wouldn't be a bad bet because of the way he plays as a striker, as kind of a big physical, also very, very mobile striker. I think Blues, they've got diminutive mobile strikers and big strikers who aren't particularly mobile, who are more kind of target men. There's not really a combination of both in this squad, is there? So I think someone like Jerome would be good. And, you know, my other suggestion was probably the one that everyone else is going for who's watching this, but I don't think the Chris Davies system allows for a maverick like Christophe Dugarry. So I think I'd probably go with Scott Dann as mine.
Christophe Dugarry, at the risk of offending our entire viewership or listenership, Dugarry had his injury problems when he signed permanently. And I wonder if Marvin Duksh is sort of filling that role at the moment. Talented maverick, international, albeit not World Cup winner. But yeah, I mean, obviously Dugarry is the answer, or Trevor Francis is the other answer, isn't it? Or Jude Bellingham is the other answer. But we're trying to solve solutions, solve problems that there are at present.
Yeah.
Luke, interesting one from Luke. Do you think Iwata putting in a good performance at right back versus Wrexham frees up a space for Leonard and Doyle in the middle of the park, or was it just a one-off? Now, you sort of went down this route earlier. Go on.
Yeah, I genuinely like the way Iwata played it. I know that they, before making that decision, they were aware that Iwata had played right back for Celtic and how he'd played it for Celtic, in that he'd inverted into midfield. I thought Iwata did a really good job of inverting into midfield, and at times when Roberts had come in field, Iwata would offer the width as well. Not in the way of Ethan Laird or Bright Asai Samuel, in that he'll be right on the last line of playing almost as like a wide striker. But, just in wide positions, ready where he can pick the ball up and circulate it, and at times get crossing. As we know, Iwata has got a fairly decent delivery from out wide on that right-hand side. So I'm in favour of it. Talking earlier, Brian, about bringing Doyle in for Peckers made me think about that a little bit more for this game especially. I like the idea of Mark Leonard keeping his place. I do think if Iwata's playing at right back for a game, I think Leonard in midfield makes sense, because he, I wouldn't say he's the most physical player in the world, but I think he's got a bit more height and physicality about him than Tommy Doyle or even Peck. Definitely more height than Peck. So I quite like that. So I do think Iwata at right back is an option moving forward for Blues. I think it makes more sense in home games because they'll have more of the ball, such as Hull at home. I think it could work in those games, but when you've got two right backs as strong as Bright Asai Samuel and Ethan Laird, when both are fit, it doesn't really make sense to put one of your main midfielders at right back, does it?
Well, it won't happen when Laird's fit.
No, exactly.
Will it? And it probably wouldn't have happened had Asai Samuel been fit. So it does feel like a sticking plaster, albeit one that worked pretty well. As I said earlier, I'm not a huge fan. I get what you're saying about in the modern game, the right back steps up into midfield and gives you three in midfield, much like what Ricardo Pereira did with Leicester City when they went up a couple of years ago. Just one, as I said, it just feels like have a bit of an aversion to seeing players play out of position. It feels like we're starting to not see the wood for the trees here a little bit, and we're trying to solve problems whilst creating others. So I'm just going to say no. He did do well at Wrexham, but I'm just going to say not for me.
Yeah, just in the modern game, when teams change formation in and out of possession and players' positions change in and out of possession, it feels like one where Blues could do it sometimes in home games.
We saw it last season with Bielik.
Yeah.
And it worked okay, but I didn't think it worked well. I didn't feel that Blues were balanced particularly. Did you?
Which one with Bielik are we talking about here?
With Bielik as the right back stepping into.
As the right back stepping into defence. Yeah. I thought, to be fair, I didn't massively like Bielik at right back. To be honest, that's probably not the best example of it, because I suppose he was coming into central defence. We haven't had the Blues version of a right back stepping into midfield, have we? Lee Buchanan did it a couple of times before he got injured. I thought he did it okay. I think Alex Cochrane might have done it a few times, but I do think Iwata gives you that strength. I think Iwata can do it. I don't think that the fullbacks Blues have got other fullbacks can do it, but I think Iwata can. So I don't see why it shouldn't be an option. Not a first choice option, as you say, because Asai Samuel and Ethan Laird are natural right backs. And if a fully fit Ethan Laird right now, I'd be picking him every day of the week.
But yeah, me too. Yeah,
it's just obviously not the case. So if Asai Samuel isn't going to play himself into form, I think it becomes more of an option.
Okay, not for me. Right back should be a right back for me. Right, Blues KRO, Tommy Doyle, : is there a reason why Chris Davies isn't using him as much as fans wanted? A reason we might not be aware of? Or does he have too much faith in Peck and Iwata? Go on, Alex, you speak to Davies more than I do. What's his feeling about Tommy Doyle?
I think, he's spoken well about him at points this season. He can obviously, he always highlights his set-piece qualities. He liked his performance against Sheffield Wednesday, but not enough to keep him in the team for Wrexham. I think it all boils down to the trust that Chris Davies has in Pek Sung-ho. I think that's probably a direct battle now, as I mentioned earlier. I do think it's going to be one of those two. I don't think we'll see them play together too much. I think Chris Davies sees them as similar profile players. They're eights rather than sixes, which is obviously where he sees Iwata. I think Leonard's the first reserve for Iwata in that position. So I think Tommy Doyle's got to prove to Chris Davies consistently that he is a better option than Peck. And Peck's got a 12-month body of work under Chris Davies where he's been pretty good. For us last season, we waxed lyrical about Peck. I know it was only League One, but I thought he was exceptional. He's a regular starter for the South Korean national team. He's a very accomplished player. I think, although I've been impressed by some of the bits Tommy Doyle has done, and I think he has deserved more chances up to this point, I'm not convinced he's done enough to take Peck's position yet. Having said that, as you mentioned earlier, Brian, I do think it's a fair time for Chris Davies to say, Peck's been away for 7 to 10 days or whatever it is. I've had Tommy Doyle on the training ground for the last week, preparing for the Hull City game. Tommy Doyle can start the Hull City game, because that to me would make sense when you've had more time to prepare with a particular player. But pretty much every time Peck's come back from international duty, he has started the next game. He started the Stoke game. He started all the games last season after he'd been on international duty with South Korea, apart from the one where he returned injured. So, history tells us that he will start. But I do think this is the best chance Davies has had yet to leave him out and play Tommy Doyle.
Yeah, indeed. I probably should have started this whole discussion up with the rest of that question from Blues KRO. Peck and Iwata work well together, but it's clear they haven't been as effective in the Championship as they were last season. We can just wave that through. That does feel to be the case, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, I agree. Is it in the conversation that Tommy Doyle isn't as good an athlete as Peck?
That's not something Chris Davies highlighted, but it was something that was highlighted by Tommy Doyle's previous manager at Wolves, wasn't it? So that he's not, what was the, it was basically saying that he wasn't physically good enough to play in the Wolves team in the Premier League. Again, very different style to the way that the Blues play. They're a possession-based team, but still the Championship is very physical. You look at most of the midfields Blues come up against each week. There are very powerful physical midfield players, and I do think Peck has the edge on Tommy Doyle in that. I think we can say that. It's quite obvious that he does. Technically, does Doyle bring more to the party than Peck? I think set pieces he definitely does, but set pieces isn't really an area of strength of Blues, is it? Even if you've got David Beckham's delivery. So I just think things are conspiring against Doyle at the moment. But he's a big signing for Blues. It's designed to become a permanent transfer. He's got to get a chance at some point, hasn't he? And a consistent chance in the team.
Just feel that we're starting to get into the weeds of what Tommy Doyle can't do or what Tommy Doyle isn't.
Yeah.
You know, he's a Premier League pedigree, high quality technical footballer who can distribute a ball beautifully, reads a game well. I thought his reading of the game and his breakup play against Sheffield Wednesday was pretty good, quite frankly. He's just to say he's overdue a chance, which I think you've just said, to be fair.
Brings it back to, can the system not change? I know, you know, in possession it's probably always going to look the same, but can it not become a 4-3-3 where Tommy Doyle is one of two number 8s with Iwata as a 6? I think there, for me, you probably get better out of the best out of Peck and Tommy Doyle in those 8 positions where they can play a little bit more loose and have a little bit more freedom to go forward and try and create things, or one could go forward and one could hold back. I think when you've got such strength in those positions, there should come a time where you try and get all 3 of them on the field, but it does feel very much like Davies is married to his system and probably won't change.
Yeah, absolutely. We've kicked a 4-3-3 around quite a lot, haven't we? And thought that might be a way of doing it. But yeah, I don't think that is likely to happen. Maxim, with all our late goals, is it time to admit sticking to plan A of pounding the rock isn't the way? Instead, do we need to find a balanced 11 that allows us to mix it up between the possession style we've committed to and a direct football that is getting those late goals? That is a real philosophical question here. You go first with that one.
I think if Chris Davies read that question, he'd probably argue that Blues are getting the late goals from pounding the rock.
Because they're pounding the rock. Yeah, but then Maxim says says a lot of the late goals are quite direct. So
they are. When you think back to the Dykes one, the second one, the second goal Blues scored at Blackburn, it was almost a counter attack, wasn't it? With Gray running down the right hand side. And Blues just committing bodies forward. The Dykes header against Swansea, direct cross.
Timmy Gray at Sheffield Wednesday.
Direct set piece goal. That can count. That's long thrown, can't we? Alex Cochrane, long throw specialist.
Okay. I mean, that might be stretching it a little bit, but there we go.
So yeah. No, I agree with that. I think the problem is Blues can't be direct a lot of the time, can they? Because they can only be direct when they've got the players who suit that on the field, and they haven't got many of them. So Lyndon Dykes is one. Marvin Duksh, although he's got the physical frame, you know, he's not striking me as someone who's particularly good in the air or particularly wants that to be his game. Obviously, the other strikers Blues have got you can discount for aerial balls. And then, you know, you're not going to stick a centre-back up front. So Blues don't really have the option to be that direct. They can play balls down the channels to Kyogo and Stansfield or going behind. But as far as, you know, hurling crosses into a box, they can only really do that when Lyndon Dykes is in the box. So does Lyndon Dykes therefore become a starter like he was at Wrexham? I don't think that's going to be a solution for Davies over the next 3 months consistently. No. I think he'll start games, but I think he still sees him as more of an impact sub.
Yeah, I think Maxim's raised a really interesting dichotomy here, and actually it goes to the heart of what Blues are, and they're so far down this possession-based style. And let's face it, Chris Davies isn't going to throw it out. It worked well, or it worked okay, or it worked brilliantly, however you want to go in League One. It's not quite there yet in the Championship, but he's not going to just throw it out the window over 9 games. Particularly when, as you say, Alex, they just don't have the horses to play an alternate style. And you know, am I being unfair in saying that when Lyndon Dykes is on the team sheet, you know, there aren't many hearts set aflutter on that? Is that unfair?
I think it probably is based on this season. I think he's been the team's second most effective striker.
Okay, all right. So if Dykes is starting up front on Saturday against Hull, are you thinking brilliant, or are you thinking, oh, I'd love Duksh to be fit and we can see what we can make of him, or I'd love Kyogo to be given another chance so he can get that goal and go on that run?
Brian, I think when you was it 11 games into the season, I'm probably not thinking anything really. If Lyndon Dykes is in the 11, or if Kyogo's in the 11, you know, we've been excited by Kyogo at the beginning, but he's missed his chances. We've been excited by Duksh in his one start, but he's not been fit for the next one. Dykes has at least offered Blues something off the bench. I thought he was excellent when he came on. I say excellent. He still kind of played his part in the second Sheffield Wednesday goal, but I thought he was good enough when he came on against Sheffield Wednesday, and probably the catalyst for Blues comeback late on, because he was the body in the box who was putting himself about and creating things. He created that chance for Kyogo as well. So I just think he's bringing a more all-round game than the other two strikers that we're talking about.
So you're playing him from the start then?
No, I've said earlier I'm going for Kyogo from the start, because I think Kyogo needs more chances and he needs rhythm. Kyogo needs rhythm, I think, and needs to keep playing. I would probably be at a point with Kyogo where I'd say just give him 3 games and try and play him through it and see if he can get one and get himself on a little goal scoring run. Because bringing him in and out of the team clearly isn't doing his sharpness in front of goal any good.
Maxim, you've sent us round in circles here. Thanks for that really thought-provoking question there. Kieran, is there likely to be any changes to the set piece side? That and individual errors are quite clearly letting down what most underlying stats suggest is a good team. So yeah, I mean, what can they do with set pieces, Alex? I don't know if Kieran's is hinting at getting in a new set piece coach or something like that. Go on.
It's difficult, isn't it? Teams, obviously, a lot of teams have gone down that route of getting a designated set piece coach, whereas Blues, have got, I think, Ben Petty doing attacking set pieces, Jonathan Grounds taking on a lot of the responsibility for the defensive set pieces. So they haven't. It was like when Ashley Cole was doing the defensive set pieces and the set pieces when he was at the club. They haven't exactly got a great load of tools to work with, have they? They've got 2, maybe 3 decent-sized players in the area when those deliveries come in. We've said it a few times now. It has felt like if Christoph Clara doesn't win the ball, then nobody's going to. Christoph Clara's eagerness at times to win the ball this season has probably left him out of position. But again, we've said that you can't blame him for that either. It feels to me, again, we've said on multiple podcasts now that just it was a recruitment oversight, and I would be surprised if this trend didn't continue. If this trend continued of Blues conceding set piece goals between now and January, that the club didn't go and try and address it by signing a couple of bigger players who can help out. Because I don't think 2 or 3 players over 6 foot tall is enough in the Championship. I think you need 4 or 5. Most teams that I've seen this season have had 4 or 5. So I just think they need to be bigger. They need bigger players. And you can't really do anything about that between now and January, can you? You've just got to find a system that works. And I think they genuinely believe that the zonal marking with those 3 players and allowing others to man mark is the best solution. It will be interesting to watch over the next few weeks, in the next games, whether they actually do anything different from these set piece situations, try and amend it and correct it. Because it's a problem that can't continue if they want to climb the table. You can't have a goal difference on set piece of -5.
I wonder if they start thinking about what they asked the goalkeeper to do. With obviously Beadle in goal now ahead of Allsop. As you say, the other option is to wait until January and bring some physique in, bring some size in. The other option is a designated set piece coach. And of all of the things that we're just kicking around here, the designated set piece coach to me feels like the least likely. I agree. Because that's a very strong move to make, and also that set piece coach would still be working with the same players. And I do think it feels to me like more of a personnel issue, and the players Blues have got in those areas rather than it being Jonathan Ground's fault that Christoph Clara didn't get his head to the ball ahead of Max Clough, and George Dobson was waiting in the middle to nod it ahead in front of James Beadle. So I think it's more of a personnel issue that needs to be addressed. I mean, you can stop the thing at source, can't you? You can make sure you're not giving away free kicks in dangerous areas. Obviously, corners are going to happen, and in some respects, you want them to happen because you want the defender in the right place to stick the ball out. But I think you can control how many free kicks and where you're giving free kicks away.
Also as well, Brian, I've been surprised coming back into the Championship how big set pieces have been at the start of this season for teams. The sheer number of teams now that have someone taking long throw-ins You know, when Mark Roberts was doing that a couple of years ago, it felt like Blues were the only team bothering. And
if only Mark Roberts was 10 years younger.
that's the thing. But it does feel like teams are really prioritising that now. Everyone seems to have a long throw specialist apart from Blues. I think Jack Robbins has tried it, Alex Cochran's tried it. They don't really seem to have one. Whereas everyone else seems to have one and puts it right on top of the Blues defence. So, I've just been surprised by how good
it's in vogue, though, isn't it? It's in the Premier League now. It's very in vogue.
It is. So it's full centre-backs. Do you remember when Tony Pulis played full centre-backs and everyone thought it was an absolute disgrace playing no full-backs? Yeah. And now everyone plays at least 3 centre-backs, don't they, in the Premier League? So, yeah.
I remember when Tony Pulis played Saido Berahino as a secondary left-back away to Everton. 4 centre-backs across the back and Berahino shadowing whichever left-sided central defender was playing left-back that day. So
I bet he loved that.
Yeah, right up his street. Alex, I think that wraps it up, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
I feel like we've gone round in tactical circles there, potentially more heat than light. But thank you, everybody, for your attention and your interest. Please do hit subscribe, like, or leave a comment. And thank you, Alex, for your time as well. All that remains is a big keep right on from both of us.